Well, good news, everybody. Last week was not the last episode of the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show. You're listening to the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, sponsored by Benjamin Moore. And if you don't listen every week, well, shame on you, first off. But I will let you in on it. Last week I said it could be the very last episode of the show.
Some real dramatic statements.
I did.
About every day could be our last.
Every day could be our last. But last week in particular, I had great big plans to go roller skating.
Yes.
And I know my struggles with non-klutzy, non-klutzy behavior with gravity, and I could only anticipate what a couple hours of roller skating was going to be like. Well, I'm here. I survived. So for some of you, this is a win. For other people, you're going to have to keep enduring. But the good news is we don't know. This still could be the last episode of the show. I never made it roller skating. The family had a couple of sick people in it. Well, not, sick, like they had the cold or something. Not sick deeper than that.
Not like just... it could be their last day. No,
technically, Haley. We don't know. But no, people were not feeling well. We were unable to go. So it's on the schedule. It's kind of one of those it's like a floating feast day or something. Someday we're going to go roller skating soon when everything aligns just right. Mm-hmm. And I will be sure to talk about it in depth on air. I'm very excited for that day to come. But it was not this past weekend.
You should let me know beforehand.
I will. I'll let everybody know. It's my way.
Yeah.
I'll say a lot about it. And we'll see what happens.
Maybe I can get some of that on video.
Oh, man, it should be. Anyway, someday that's coming. Right now, what do we want to talk about on the show today? We've got a lot of different things planned, a big interview.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. We're talking to a fire scientist.
Fire scientist Kurt Zink from Vanderwall Brothers. And, he's going to be talking about high-efficiency wood burning stoves and fireplaces, inserts, all of that. But also about a big tax credit that if you put one of these in, well, I'm not going to spill the beans. He'll tell you about that coming up. We're also going to be talking about how to kill the winter blues.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, we're going to kill it good, kill it dead. And that's coming up at the end of the show.
Just be dead.
But right now, what are you going to amaze us with, Haley? Haley's got a topic.
Okay, well, when you lead in like that.
I like to lead in big, Haley. It's the open.
It's paint cure. And
boy.
Sounds thrilling. I know. When I pitched this topic to Dan, he thought, okay.
Yeah, paint cure. And it's not even cure like, okay, you're struggling with this. If you put paint on it, you're going to be better.
No, we're talking about like literally paint drying. Like
letting
the dullest
it dry.
thing possible.
It's important, though. And it's something people don't typically understand.
No,
it's
not.
I know that for a fact because even I was uninformed on this years back when I was but a novice.
Even as someone that understands paint cure and dry times and all of that, I'm still guilty of, testing painted surfaces after I painted them for durability. Sure. Because, I painted my cabinets or a piece of furniture or a floor, and I'm worried that it's not going to be durable, right? Like, did I use the right paint? Is it going to hold up? So I'll do a little scratch test after I've painted something. Not the right time to do that. That's not going to tell me any good information.
Right.
It's going to scratch off.
At least you know that. So you're impatient.
Yes,
I
was
impatient. Completely ignorant.
Okay.
So, a previous job, I decided the manager was away. Mm-hmm. And I decided with the other people there, they thought, hey, we should paint all of these displays that we've got. Do you want to do it, Dan? And of course, like a moron, I of course said, yes, I'll do that. So I ran off to RepcoLite, my very first experience at RepcoLite. I was in college and got paint. And actually, I got paint from the store that I ended up working in, came back, did everything that they told me to do.
Yeah.
What I did not ask is how long do I wait before I, put any test on this. And I was scared to death that when the manager came back from his vacation.
Messed it up.
Yes, that it was not going to work very well. And so right away, I got them painted. And that next morning, I came in and I did the scratch test.
Yes.
And then the first one I tested, it peeled right off.
Right.
So I went around the whole place.
And just started scratching?
Yes. And I peeled huge amounts of paint off all over the place. Had to go back to RepcoLite, crabbed that the paint was bad, was informed about paint cure, and then told how to fix my problem. Yes. So let's talk about paint cure because we don't want you to be a Haley.
Right. And
impatient.
impatient.
And we don't want you to be ignorant. like Dan.
Neither things are good. But no, understanding paint cure is critical to making the paint last as long as possible and, to not undo all of your hard work you did.
It's really, really dumb.
Just because paint feels dry to the touch doesn't mean that paint is durable yet. And that's where paint cure comes in. So paint is dry to the touch when solvents have evaporated from your paint. So it feels dry. Mm-hmm. It's not actually fully dry yet. It's not fully 100% dry until the paint has reached its full hardness when it's fully cured, and that can take 21 to 30 days.
That's right. So don't start scratching at it a day later.
You're not going to have any idea of its true durability until you reach that full maximum cure time.
So what kind of things play into that and affect how long it will take to cure?
Right, because that's a range, 21 to 30 days, but it could take longer than that. It could take less time than that because there are things that affect how long cure time takes, like the thickness of the paint, how thickly you applied that paint. The thicker it is, the longer it's going to take to cure. The surface you painted, the sheen of the paint even, the color of the paint can have an impact.
The environment.
The darker the color, the longer it's going to take to cure.
Sure.
Yeah, the environment
you're painting in. All of those conditions can affect all of that. So what do you do? Now, you've got to let it sit the time that we talked about.
Right.
But there are definitely some rules to follow
exactly
with all of this in mind that will help you get great results.
Right. So if you're painting cabinets like Dan was doing or like those shelves that you were painting, don't put all of the things back on those shelves right away.
No, because you're going to need a putty knife to get them off later.
You maybe don't have to wait the full 30 days, right? But waiting 3 days rather than 3 hours is going to be better. So keep that in mind. Wait as long as possible to put those objects back on shelves.
Right. That's just right there is a really good rule of thumb. Wait as long as you can wait.
Yep, exactly.
Whatever that is, give it that amount of time. That's really good. How about like if you're painting a floor? Like you wouldn't
wear
want
high heels,
Right.
Like that
Glad
would be
you
a
jumped
good
in
rule
with
of
that
thumb.
I was jumping into that and I thought, how do I finish this and have it end well?
No, wear socks. If it's new paint, the high heels could actually make little indents into the painted surface. So just wear socks when the paint is dry.
Right. If it's not dry,
don't walk across it.
That's really bad too. Don't use heavy solvents to clean a newly painted surface. That's another thing people mistake. They want to see how washable something is, so they jump right on it, and that can be a mistake. Don't cover up a freshly painted surface, so don't throw paper on top of it to prevent, or protect against foot traffic and things like that. Just let it cure.
Exactly.
Let it be exposed to the air. Give it the time that you can, and you'll get better results. By all means, stop out and ask us about that. We'll tell you what you need to expect, what you need to do to get the best results possible.
Exactly.
All right, I think we're going to have to take a break. When we come back, we'll be in the studio with Kurt Zink from Vanderwall Brothers talking about high-efficiency wood burners. That's all just ahead. Stay tuned. And we're back, and Haley, we're going to solve some of my problems.
Oh, good.
Yep, that's exactly what I like to do. You're listening.
And there's someone else here to do it for us.
Yes, you're listening to the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, and we're in the studio with Kurt Zink, fire scientist from Vanderwall Brothers, right, Kurt?
That's right.
Did I get all of that right?
Vanderwall Brothers in Spring Lake and Heritage Fireplace by Vanderwall Brothers in Grand Rapids.
All right, so all of that is together. The most important thing about all of that was fire scientist.
Yes.
I want to dig into that, but the problem that I've got, it's a problem I've been trying to solve for a while. I've got a wood-burning fireplace in the house, and I've never had the chimney,
a chimney
checked.
sweep?
Well, I've swept it. I've done all of that, but I've never had anybody come down and put a camera down there, make sure everything's good. It's a house we moved into, after we bought it. That's how we like to do things. We like to move in after we've paid for it. Right. Yeah, the other people finally left, and now it's ours. No, we moved in, and I never really dug into that. And so for the last 3 years, I've been a little nervous to even run it. I should get somebody out there.
Well,
but
I love the idea of wood-burning fireplaces, but every time I've been around one, it is a little more nerve-wracking than I expect it to be for some reason.
What, because there's fire in the house? Well, yeah, and all of that is concerning. We've actually been in the studio, Haley has not, but multiple times with Rob Kakowski. I think I got his name right. And he was from
Heritage Fireplace.
Heritage Fireplace. And Rob always came with a ton of information. We're expecting the same from you, Kurt, and I'm sure we're going to get it because I've already had conversations with you. And I just want to dig into this whole thing. Fireplaces in the home. I know that fire, in the home it's a concerning thing. It's something that you take very seriously. Fire scientist isn't a joke name for you, is it?
It's not.
No, not at all.
And really, we talk about National Fireplace Institute. We have multiple people that are hearth design specialists, and that's really when you're intentionally putting fire in your home, you want to make sure safety is of the utmost concern. So that's really one of our core values, and that's really a core value of wherever you go, you're intentionally putting fire in your home.
Yeah. So we're going to dig into that. And like I said, I've been nervous to even get my fireplace going. I've looked at some different inserts. I want to talk about specifically today with you high efficiency wood burning and also a tax credit that's out there that I want people to be aware of. First, before we get to that important stuff, Kurt, you're just back from Vegas and you were talking about a home that you toured. And it's the kind of house that I'm thinking about making the purchase on.
It's an entry-level home.
It's entry level.
Entry-level luxury. It's what I deserve. It's what I feel I should get. Kurt, tell us about that house very briefly.
Yeah, we were out at the National Association of Home Builders International Builder Show, and so one of my coworkers and I, we had the opportunity to go into an entry-level luxury home is how they described it. It's the new American home, and so the NHAB will put on and they'll design homes to look at latest trends, indoor-outdoor spaces.
Sure.
This specific home was a 2-bedroom, 7,700 square foot home. $14 million price tag. Not your typical
7,700 square.
Yeah, I've got more kids than that, so I'm going to need more bedrooms.
Well, I'm sure you could fit them somewhere. It's 7,700 square.
But I want it to be specifically bedroom space, Haley, and nothing's too good for me. So how much did you say the price tag was?
$14 million.
Yeah, entry level.
Very, very entry level.
Yeah, it's crazy. You were telling me that. I thought it was hilarious. You mentioned a couple of the fire components in the house, some of the cool things that they've done with design, though.
Yeah, so very much the indoor-outdoor space, they did that really well. It was exquisite. It overlooks Las Vegas. It was a curated event, and some of the fire features were just certainly over the top. And so it was more for design ideas, and that's really why we go is to look at some of the latest, cutting-edge sorts of designs and what that might look like here in West Michigan.
In a normal home.
Yeah. Even my home could at least have, well, probably not even those things. Those components were probably more expensive and valuable than the home I live in. But I could still have fire in my house in a safe manner, and that's what we want to get
Absolutely.
to. Before we do that, though, Kurt, we mentioned briefly you're with Vanderwall Brothers. Talk about who you guys are, what you do, who you are, and why we need to listen.
Yeah, so I'm a recovering CPA, and so I've been in construction for most of my career, and so I'm fortunate to be in the building product space. So Vanderwall has been around since 1922.
Wow.
We really do three things well. We have a 17-acre campus in Spring Lake, 2 manufacturing facilities, and we make dry cast concrete products. So we make concrete block. Large battery plant that's getting built here near Holland is a project that we're sourcing. So that's the type of work that we do, K through 12 market. Second thing that we do really well is we're mechanical contractors specializing in yellow flame. And so that's everything fire related, indoor and outdoor. That's kind of our space. And then the third thing is we're stone, brick, and hardscapes dealers. And so anything, we kind of take a holistic approach when we talk about fireplaces because a lot of times there's stone. It's a non-combustible product that's going around a fireplace for safety and for design. And so we really kind of cover that ground between the hearth industry and the stone and brick space.
All right. So tons of stuff. Kurt, there's a lot of different things that we could dig into, and we plan to, as long as you have an okay time here.
I'm honored to be here.
Yeah. He's honored to be here.
Honored.
Did you listen to the podcast?
I absolutely did.
Yes. I wanted somebody to say that. I didn't even know what to say.
Awesome. Your moment has arrived. Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I feel like a kid on Christmas, at Christmas. Anyway, let's just get to it. I'm flustered. Thank you, Kurt.
You are welcome.
I have no idea how to respond to that.
See,
I made a big joke about
you
it.
wanted this to happen all the time.
It's just like most
now
of life.
You don't know what to do.
If only this would happen, then it does, and you're just completely flummoxed. You don't know what to do. Let's talk about high-efficiency wood-burning stuff. You say there's a tax credit out there, and we want to get to that. But first, I guess my familiarity with high-efficiency stuff is with like gas inserts and stuff. How does this? I mean, it's obviously not gas, so how does it compare? Is it as efficient?
Yeah,
what are we looking
We have
at?
lots of different, I kind of think of the fireplace space as different fuel sources. There's gas, natural gas, propane, there's wood, there's alternative fuel, pellets, there's electric, and then we talk about the types of fireplaces. A traditional fireplace, insert, a stove. Each of them have different applications and what works from a venting standpoint. I think the thing that you were referencing on the tax credit, so the tax credit has, transformed over time. I think when Rob was last here, it was a $300 tax credit in 2020.
So, yeah.
It's changed. We currently have a 25C tax credit, which is basically a 30% eligible stoves, high efficiency. The way they categorize high efficiency is 75% higher heating value and above. And so that 30% is for materials, labor. It's capped at $2,000.
Cool.
And so that's kind of a cool thing. If you're considering looking at some sort of wood stove, pellet insert, pellet stove, the tax credit could be a beneficial thing to look at.
And you said installation and all of that.
Installation, yeah. So if you go to EPA.gov, there's certain qualifying, so really kind of the measuring stick is the higher heating value. And so basically what we're looking at is the particulate matter that goes into the atmosphere. They're continuing to lower the number of grams that are happening, out of wood burning, biomass type applications.
So like a cleaner burn.
So it's cleaner burning. So, and that's, kind of came out in May 15th of 2020, so that you're getting a very clean, efficient burning wood stove, pellet stove insert.
Okay.
Does that have to do with the ventilation? I keep thinking of solo stoves when you say clean burning because I don't know if you're familiar with that fire pit, but it's got like the little ring around it.
Yep.
And it has a secondary flame
Secondary
that burns
burn. Yep.
all of the other
Yep.
matter that's coming off of it, so it's smokeless. Is
Yep.
that kind of what we're talking about?
It's not. That's another application. We sell Brio. Brio and Solo are very similar, so secondary burn. But the venting system really in any fireplace is really the engine to the fireplace. And so it's how it's getting oxygen and how it's releasing the off-gassing, if you will. So but the efficiency conversations, some of the stoves are catalytic, where there's a replaceable catalyst, kind of like a catalytic converter in your car. And then there's others that have a different sort of burning mechanism that burns efficiently. So it's really more about the particulate matters that are going in. The more burning that's happening in the chamber, that less particulate matter that's happening, in the atmosphere.
All right.
You're a fire scientist.
This is a fire scientist, and
a lot.
we're going to take a break for just a second. If you can hang with us, Kurt.
Yep.
Can you? Okay. You don't have to say it's an honor when you come back.
Okay.
One was good. I mean, that was plenty. I'm really happy with that.
I'm going for a while.
That's I'm living the dream right now. But I want to dig into practically how this plays out, how we as homeowners make the right purchase, what we're even looking at.
Yeah.
And you're going to help us with all of that. And we're going to do all of that after a quick break with news and weather in Grand Rapids and a RepcoLite Rewind in the Detroit area. That's all ahead. Stick around. You're listening to the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show on 106.7 Detroit's Wheels, and right now it's time for another RepcoLite Rewind, and this time we're rewinding our way back to an episode from January 25 of 2021. But right now, let's talk about an interesting conversation that you and I had with Caroline Dwan from Benjamin Moore. Caroline comes from the Chicago area, and she met us for lunch about a week ago and was talking to us all the new stuff that's coming out. And then she mentioned this personal dilemma that she ran into.
Yeah, she'd painted her kitchen, which went really well. She stepped outside the box. Usually she's kind of a beige or khaki person. and was so inspired by the home show, or not the home show, the design event that you guys had a couple years ago. She decides she wants to try something along the lines of First Light for her office now, because
Now, First Light is kind of a pink, a neutrally pink, very soft pink.
Very soft. But the kitchen is green. She really likes it a lot. It's calm. It works in that space. Now the office is right off the kitchen, and she's looking at all the samples in that room. She's doing that right. She sampled. That's the best thing that you can do. But she's getting down to the wire. Her painter's going to be there. That's a friend of hers over the 4th of July weekend. It's the 3rd, and she's still got to choose a color and clean out the room. So it's kind of down to the wire, and it forces her into a position that no one wants to be in, and that's choosing a color that maybe isn't right. It's just...
You've got to have a decision.
Yeah.
That's where she was at. I need to do something. I need to pick something. She had asked a bunch of people for their advice. And a couple of things. It's a hard story to tell because there's so many different components. So I want to go back. You had said how she sampled the colors. She did the right thing. She sampled 10 colors, though.
True.
That was part of the problem.
Not all pinks.
Right. She had blues and grays and a number of different tones. So she did all of that and was stuck. Couldn't quite decide. She brought in other people. How many times haven't we done that? You know,
yeah,
we always do that.
Which one would you choose?
Right. So she brings in other people and gets their advice, and then it really just, she can't settle on anything. Nothing quite seems right, but she's got 10 colors. One of them has to be right.
Yeah, there's a pressure.
Right. Now the painter needs something, and she's got to just go with what she thought was the color in fact, the word she used is, this was the color I disliked the least.
Yeah.
You know, she liked the color in and of itself. That was important. But there was something about it that just didn't feel right.
Exactly.
But she needed a decision. So she chose that color and figured, I'm going to just grow to love it over time. It'll be great. Turns out, didn't work that way. And it really gets worse.
Right.
It was a little bit sad. If it had been me, it would have been even sadder. But this was somebody else, so I was just thinking, oh, this is interesting. Funny how that works.
Let's dig into that.
Yeah, I had a lot of empathy, though. Did you notice?
No.
What? I was very empathetic.
Sure. Yeah, you were
I
curious.
wept when she wept.
No.
I didn't? No, I didn't. I was very curious, though. And the thing that was very interesting is that not only did she now hate that color that was in her office, hated it
so much she didn't even want to think about it.
She said it was gross to even think about the office color and the kitchen color
together.
She said it was like Miami Vice, way too pastel. So here's what you end up with. She loved the kitchen and she liked the color in the office separately. Right. Together,
gross.
She hated both of them. She hated the kitchen space as well now.
Right.
So now, as we were talking to her, she was thinking about she's got to get a painter back. She's got to pick new colors for both spaces. She's just got to change everything.
Yeah.
She was very frustrated, very depressed in a way, you know, in a lighthearted manner. It's hard to picture Caroline depressed. Yeah, it was an easygoing depression, but you know the feeling. You thought you had something. You thought you were
defeated.
Right, defeated. You're making progress, and then you make a decision that feels like you just erased all the progress you were making. That's where she was at. How does she fix it? What went wrong? So one mistake is choosing a color under pressure. That's never a good idea.
Yeah, it takes a lot longer than we think sometimes, and it's almost like that rule of thumb, however long you think something's going to take, just double it.
Right. That's how I do almost everything. I assume I'm going to mess it up and it's going to take longer.
That formula seems to work for some reason.
And the thing with the color is that and anytime you've got a deadline, that deadline is a deadline. It can't be extended. There's no way to just add extra time on the end. The only place to add extra time is in the beginning. So you need to start earlier. If you've got a project coming up, I'd start working on your colors now.
Right, because
you can always be done ahead of time.
Decision. That's the one that's going to take the most time. If you're not painting the room yourself and you're depending on this deadline, that's all the work that's up front, and you can't adjust anything now.
No. So start now. That's the first thing. That would have helped Caroline a lot. Another thing is to consider the color of adjoining spaces. That is absolutely key. Don't decorate in a vacuum.
Right. Everything is connected. You're going to walk from one space to the next. You can see the colors from the other room. They've all got to be cohesive and in harmony, work together, because now she doesn't like the office color, this rose bisque, But she did like that kitchen color before, and now she doesn't because of the rose bisque.
Right. Both of the colors she was okay with. It's when she sees them together, and the funny thing is, the ironic thing is, the place where she can sit in the office, where she works, that spot is the spot that allows her to see both of those together.
Right.
So always consider that. Keep that in mind. Sometimes we get over-focused on the room we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it's got to play well with the rest of the house as well. Now, another thing is that more isn't always better. Having too many choices actually makes the whole choosing process much, much tougher.
Well, it can like paralyze you sometimes. But also, it's really important to find a color direction before you're sampling. If she's going to go with a pink, it's better to find that out before you've got samples on the wall. It's best not to have blue, gray, and pink on the wall together, because now that's a lot to decide on.
Well,
if you do want to go with blue, now maybe you've got to sample more blues to find the right one.
Right.
That's overwhelming.
Right. And that's so interesting because, what we would say is when you get to the point of putting colors on the wall, you should already have figured out kind of the rough direction where you're going.
Yeah, because now you're just doing tints and shades.
Right. And worst case scenario, you've got a couple of options where you maybe might be going.
Right.
But you certainly don't want to have this full spectrum because, like you're saying, it can make it more confusing.
Mm-hmm.
There's still more to dig into. And also, colors don't look right necessarily next to other certain tones. We see the undertones come through.
Well, and our eyes are averaging all the colors that we see at once. So we're not really seeing that color unless it's by itself. That's so important to remember. That's why we want to get it larger with these color samples mostly, so that we're not seeing the other colors in our vision.
Right.
We want to narrow in.
So when we talk about buying color samples, Benjamin Moore has those sample pints. What we're not not necessarily recommending is that you just try a whole bunch of different tones and all kinds of different colors. We're saying use the color chips in the store for that.
Mm-hmm.
Take those home to figure out where you want to go. Then get specific with the color samples that you're actually painting onto the wall.
Exactly.
Another mistake or something to consider is that outside opinions aren't always helpful. Right now with social media, it's just blown up where people are throwing things out on their social media pages and asking for opinions.
Let's have a poll. Yeah. Which one do you think I should choose? And maybe that's helpful, but sometimes what do you do if the answers don't go with your gut? If you're thinking, I really like this one, but everyone else is saying, well, I think this one. Now there's that battle. Or people know you so well that they know that that's the one that you already like. They're just going to confirm your bias.
Well, and Caroline talked about that. She said she brought in a bunch of people and they all they said, in fact, she had even said at our lunch that a couple people had just said, you like that color. You like that rose bisque. Mm-hmm. Go for it. They're just confirming her in that color.
Right.
And that can be good.
But if it's none of them, are they going to be the people that say, maybe this isn't the direction we should go with at all?
Right. And a lot of us, if we have that person in our lives who will tell us those things, those aren't the people that we usually ask.
Yeah, we don't want to hear that.
So it's a tough situation when you bring people in. It's tough for them. It's tough to come in and say, I don't like what you've put together.
Yeah, but that's why you need an outside person like a designer or a color consultant that's going to be unbiased and just able to be objective about color.
Somebody you don't have to go and eat Easter dinner with, after all of this. So we've got color consultants in the store who will gladly help. If you want to bring in some color samples and talk it through, we can connect you with a designer if you'd like. Just stop in at any RepcoLite or Port City Paint store and start the conversation. Now, another thing that happens, and you kind of alluded to it already, Haley, is Caroline didn't trust her gut on this one.
And that's the part I think she's really disappointed with, too, is that she knew and didn't listen to herself. That's always frustrating when you have the feeling that this isn't quite right, even if you don't know why. Mm-hmm. If you feel that way, you've kind of got to trust it because color is not this rational thing that we can just think our way out of. If we feel it's not right, it's never really going to be right. I don't know that we can learn to love a color.
Well, right. We talk about that all the time, how color creates the atmosphere in a space. Mm-hmm. And so much of that is built around the feeling of what it's doing. It's not a logical thing at all.
Yeah, that's why it's so difficult.
Right. So trying to force yourself or thinking that, hey, I'm going to grow to like this down the road, it doesn't always play out that way. And what Caroline, in retrospect, when we were talking to her, what she picked up on is the thing that was causing her to have this averse reaction to it, this gut feeling that it wasn't quite right, was seeing the two together.
Yes.
She was seeing the green in the kitchen, and she was seeing this color sample, and something inside was saying, this is really, really not where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't listen. She figured, I need to step outside.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting because we always are challenging people, and this is a fine line.
Right,
How
is.
do you step outside of your own box and challenge yourself and still pay
feel
attention to
good.
your gut?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because sometimes our gut will keep us too safe.
Right.
All we're saying is just don't discount one or the other. Sometimes we're tempted to just figure, you know, I've got to challenge myself. I'm going to ignore what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we feel the other way. Try to find a way through keeping both of those in mind. And you do that by giving yourself more time
Yes.
to work through that process, like we said in the
Exactly.
beginning. There's a lot going on. Choosing colors can be really, really frustrating. It can be stressful.
Yeah.
It can be one of those things that almost makes us want to shy away from paint projects.
True.
On the other hand, it can be really rewarding. You know, when you get it right and you nail it, there's really nothing that feels better than seeing that space come together like that. And that's going to do it for this week's RepcoLite Rewind. If you'd like to check out other past episodes of the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, just head to RepcoLite.com and click the On the Radio tab. Now, all right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll be returning to that interview with Kurt Zink and digging into some practical aspects of high-efficiency wood-burning fireplaces and what we need to know if we're interested in installing one. That's all coming up next. Stick around. And we're back, and Haley and I are still in the studio with Kurt Zink from Vanderwall Brothers, fire scientist Kurt Zink. Kurt, it's an honor for us to be here with you. Kurt started the last segment.
You're returning the favor.
I am, because that's how I am. I'm very big-hearted, Haley. I know I feel like I'm out of reach for most people. You know, I've reached this level of amazingness, but I do like to, every now and then, step down to the rest of the crowd and just mingle a little bit.
It's nice.
I'm
that you
joking.
Well, I
stepped
appreciate
down.
that.
I'm joking. Yeah. So I turned that into a slam unintentionally. Anyway, Kurt, we've been talking about fire and all of those things. You're a fire scientist. You walked us through a tax credit, a lot of different things if you're looking at a high-efficiency wood-burning stove. Now, what I want to get into, because if you're looking for that tax credit, we'll have info in the show notes.
Yes.
And by all means, we'll get Kurt's contact info at the end of this segment if you want to reach out to him and get your questions answered. What I want to look at right now is let's paint a couple scenarios. Let's talk about, like, my house. That's what's near and dear to me.
Yes.
I've got a fireplace. It's already there. It's just a wood burner. It's not high efficiency by any means. First off, tell us, what do we get when it's high efficiency, when it's a wood burner? It's not just eliminating, undesirable things from going into the atmosphere. It's just a better heat source, right?
It is. It absolutely provides more heat. You look at kind of the history of fireplaces. We've had fire since, kind of Stone Age, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so that's continued to improve over the years from the 1800s, how fireplaces were set in stoves. You have Ben Franklin having a Franklin stove. So we're now in the 70s was really what kind of kicked off the latest with the oil embargoes that we had, and then we get into the 80s, the 90s. We're now at a point where, the grams particulate matter is very low. You're talking about efficiency, so you can have really long burn cycles. So that fireplace that you have in your den, if you're putting a high efficiency wood insert in there, you'll have a separate liner that will go up that flue, and so it really becomes. Certainly with any wood product, it's about the seasoned wood. It's the type of wood that you use. That is usually one of the biggest struggles that people have with smokeouts. But, you're getting into a long burning cycle. I know it's mid-February.
What does that mean? What does that mean, a long burning?
So
you're
we're talking
replacing the logs
6,
less
8,
often?
10-hour burn cycles
From
that
the
you
same
can get.
wood?
So you can, and that's what's pretty amazing is you can kind of damper that down and you can have a slow burn to it. Pellet stoves and pellet inserts, you can set them on a really long cycle from a burn standpoint. So it's really back to like, what is your fuel source? Where are you getting your fuel from?
Old
How are you
furniture.
seizing it? So plywood, I think I've heard plywood is one of the, so.
So I've got to get good wood. I've got to, or pellets or something like that. I was joking. thinking. I don't have any furniture to burn. Everything we've got is in use. What about the smell and stuff like that? My fireplace, I don't really mind the wood burning smell, but,
Right.
homes that burn wood have a smell. Is that still going to be a thing? Some people like it and want it.
It is, irregardless of how efficient a fireplace is, an insert, a stove that's burning wood, you will have some smoke. That's just invariably part of what will happen. And you will have a smell and you will have a sound. And so that's usually people are drawn to
Sounds
that.
like my children. Smells, sounds, all of that. It's just part and parcel. That's what you get.
Good.
How does it compare to like a gas one beyond the obvious that you're burning a log?
Yeah.
I mean, efficiency-wise, are we looking at similar efficiency?
You can look at similar efficiencies. We typically are talking about mid 70% efficiency. So these are really heating appliances. The bigger question is, what's the structure? Wood burning is very high temperature. I mean, you can reach 2,000 degrees. And so the venting systems are very different from a wood burning application to a gas application.
That makes sense.
A lot of more flexibility with gas applications. Kind of the cool thing with gas is you start to get into fresh air's coming in from the outdoors into the fire chamber, and then it's getting exhausted through the same pipe. It's a coaxial pipe, kind of a pipe within a pipe. And that's what's kind of a cool thing with gas is you have this very high efficiency, pretty flexible venting application.
Sure.
And the gas units are getting more and more sophisticated. We have a brand that we source out of Israel, and so they have fire log technology. Flames are coming out of the logs now. Very expensive, but very cool.
Well, if I ever get to that, entry-level luxury home that we started talking about, maybe I'll have one of those.
Then you'll do that.
Yeah. So when I run my fireplace, it will basically make one room in my house warm, and it makes the rest of the house very cold. Is that something that will be fixed if I switch to a high efficiency one, or is that another problem that I've got to address? You're already shaking.
Yeah, it's really kind of the design of your home, so the design of where that thermostat's at. A lot of times, what we'll suggest is sometimes people will turn their fans on in their thermostat, and then that return air, your existing ductwork, will help kind of translate that air and move the warm air around your house. But it's really more of a thermal envelope in the design and construction of the home.
All right.
That makes sense.
All right. So what about the process? What does the process look like? If somebody's interested, maybe Haley's interested, she wants to convert her fireplace. Do you have a fireplace? She doesn't have a fireplace. Let's talk about me again. I was trying to share the wisdom or the love, but not going to happen.
It's all about you.
So I want to put an insert in, high efficiency wood burning one. What's the process look like? I call you guys. Then what happens?
Typically find, so we have a 7-step process that we walk through at either the Heritage Fireplace by Design in Grand Rapids or Vanderwall Brothers in Spring Lake. And so we really try to take an educational, kind of a facilitative approach, and we walk through that 7-step process with each customer. And we find like we're trying to understand, the project, the scope, because we're really trying to find like what's the best fit for a person, rather than we don't really see ourselves as in the sales world. We're really seeing more ourselves as helping to facilitate, because fireplaces is a very niche industry.
Yeah,
you have to be mechanically licensed in our state, and we really want to find the best application to fit your specific needs.
So if I call you up and say I want a high efficiency wood burning insert, you would say, okay, just dial it back for a second, Dan. And then you'd want to come out and talk to me and figure out if maybe that's not even what I need or want. I might be completely wrong. I know, Haley, hold. It's hypothetical. Chances are it's not the case, but it could be, right?
It could be. And what we do is we really want you to start at the showroom. And so we start to understand your project. We know enough to be dangerous at that point to then start talking about applications, the fuel types, be it gas, wood, alternative, electric. And as we go through our process, we will do a job takeoff. And that's really where we're validating it, because we don't want to have a homeowner have a surprise. They don't want to be surprised. Right. We don't want to be surprised. Right. And so that's how, when we walk through that 7 steps, we're avoiding those issues to make sure that the application is going to work, that it's going to fit the objective of what the homeowner wants, and so that we all have a good experience.
And
it.
you can help us with anything. I mean, whether it's, well, not anything, but fire related. I mean, you've got gas inserts,
We do.
What about those little, those little fireplaces they had in the 70s? They're coming back a little bit, like
the miniature stoves.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
with the little pipe that goes out the wall. Are those something that you can help with?
We don't have miniature stoves, but we have smaller stoves. So stoves come in different sizes. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. We've had some people come in. They are very cute. Yep.
If I had one, I would want one of those.
So we've got listeners in Detroit as well. I know you don't have locations in Detroit. How far will you go? And do you have any names that you could get us for people out in Detroit? Because you just want to get the right info out there.
Absolutely. So we definitely have relationships on the east side of the state. We really kind of cover from Ludington to South Haven to the greater Grand Rapids area. That's kind of our focus of where we tangibly can work well. And I think one of the things people don't, realize is when we're talking about a fireplace, we're also talking about what's around the fireplace. And that's a lot of times where we try to look at it holistically, because if you're just looking at one application, sometimes you're not getting, I kind of call it form and function. We're talking about the function of the fireplace and the units, but then the form is really the design elements and how do those come together. It does take a little bit of time, and we do this for a living, and you might buy a fireplace every 7 years or every 10 years or something like that, and to try to help people walk through that form and function, and it's a tightrope.
And I'm sure if they contact you guys with questions, you're happy to answer those.
We are, yeah. So we can go out to our website, vanderwallbros.com, and we have, can interact through the website. Obviously our phone numbers, both the Grand Rapids and Spring Lake phone numbers, and email.
All right. We'll put all of that in the show notes. Otherwise, vanderwallbros.com. That's really fun to say. Recommend trying it, Haley, when we're off and on a break. Kurt Zink from Vanderwall Brothers. Fire scientist Kurt Zink from Vanderwall Brothers. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, conventions need to be observed, and we need to take a break and play commercials and all of that. But when we come back, we'll be talking about some things that you can do right now that will save you big money on an upcoming project in the spring. That's all coming up just ahead, so stay right there. Well, Haley, let's solve the winter blues problems for people, because I know that we've had really nice weather for the last week or two, and we have delayed talking about this topic because we've had really nice weather. We've looked ahead and decided this was not the time to talk about killing the winter blues, but we know that winter is still lurking.
This is the worst time of winter, because you get built all this little hope, because you get these weeks of nice weather, and you think, oh, I'm in the clear now.
Yeah.
Like, we're done with this.
Right.
Smooth sailing.
Normally I would be done with it. I've learned, I'm 50 years old. I finally figured it out. And even though I've had plenty of days in the past weeks where I'm outside in shorts, T-shirts, and winter boots, I know that that's
You're
not how it's going to stay. Huh?
I said you're one of those people.
You're surprised that I'm one of those people? That surprises me. No, winter's coming back, and with it, the winter blues come back, and we all know what that feels like. And I know there's it's crushing.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of things that you can do to fix it. The whole online world is full of recommendations. You can exercise. I don't want to exercise. Struggling with the winter blues, man. The last thing I want to do is crunches or whatever.
You can get a lamp.
You can get a lamp. You can eat right. Yeah. That one really gets me.
Take some vitamin D.
I don't want to eat right. I want to eat a bag of Snickers right now and just process the depression outside, right? So all of those recommendations are ridiculous. They're not ridiculous.
They're not ridiculous.
I'm sure somebody...
But they're not for Dan.
They're not for me.
Let's be honest. We're not solving the people's winter blues problem. We're solving Dan's winter blues problem.
Right. And I am going to solve my winter blues problems by planning this year.
Yes.
And I've started this process, and it has worked so well. You can tell by the upbeat nature with which I'm delivering all of this information. It really has helped me. And the reason there's so many reasons. I think we're just going to work through it step by step. What I've started doing, let's start with that. That's really important, is planning. And I'm planning for projects that are upcoming. And my particular projects, the reason this has really panned out for me is my projects are outdoor projects.
Okay.
So when we had the nice weather, I start thinking about, oh man, I wish I could get outside. And then I know it's going to get cold again. So rather than sit here with that depression, I start planning out how I'm going to fix the deck. So that's going to be beautiful when the time comes. And I get all excited thinking about that good weather again, or the shed or the garage.
You know, it gives you something really positive to focus on. Because these are all really positive, productive things to do in the future. And it feels like you're already starting the process now because you are planning. We get so much satisfaction from planning. Sometimes you don't have to do the project.
Some people.
We just like the planning.
Some people like the planning. Not everybody likes the planning. I think the people who don't like the planning maybe aren't doing it right. And I'm certainly, I've been in that group, you know, and I think, how do you do planning wrong? Well, you do planning wrong by starting planning 4 hours before your project's
that's not
going to start. Well, that's what people think of as planning, and that doesn't work. Or why else would they hate planning? Because not everybody loves planning.
I think people like doing. You know, some people are active, physical people, and so they just want to start doing.
What, are you implying that I'm not?
No.
The way you looked at me.
No.
Okay.
I mean, maybe.
Boy, that was awkward.
Kind of like
okay. I wish I hadn't drawn attention to that. No, I think what you hit on there is we don't think of planning as doing. I think that's the answer.
Yeah.
And planning feels like a waste of time.
Right.
I should be accomplishing this so I can get to the next thing. Haley, you're brilliant. See, you fixed the problem. I didn't know what the answer was. Now we do. Planning is activity.
Yes.
It's ridiculously important activity.
Yes.
And if you don't accomplish it, your actual physical activities are going to be less productive. So jump into planning. You mentioned that it gives your mind something productive to work on.
Right.
For me, what's happened with this planning, not only am I looking at summer projects that are upcoming that I'm excited to tackle, and that's really good as I'm heading into a project to be excited to tackle it. You know, I'm building up some energy moving ahead, but I'm also letting go of some of the introspection that I found myself doing. I have found myself when I've got downtime thinking too much about myself and things that I need to change. And I know that's surprising that there's anything. Really, I mean, people see this and listen to me and probably figure of all the people who've got it together.
But you go in kind of a negative direction is what you're saying when you've got too much downtime.
I do.
Instead of your mind getting focused
I
on,
don't get productive.
positive,
Yeah, it's not positive at all.
It's negative.
It's negative.
Yeah.
Boy, you need to exercise more. What's wrong with you? And then I turn it on everybody else. I've got lists of all the things the children do that should be changed. It's not productive. It's not positive. This has become positive. So I'm recommending that. It's really been a big difference for me. What could you plan out right now? I mean, so many things. Color. If you've got a project coming up, you're thinking about your kitchen, your bathroom, something like that, get the colors worked out right now. You are going to save yourself so much time down the road. And more importantly than time, you're going to save money and you're going to make a much better color decision.
Well, yeah, you are going to save money. And I feel like that's part of planning that I really like too, is that, yes, you're not going to make the mistake. And so you're saving money in that way. But also you can start saving for that project now because you've done all the planning. If you're a planner like me, you break down every single tool you're going to need. You price it out. And so you've got your budget for the project. And now if I can't afford to do that now, it's depressing. But if I'm planning and I'm looking towards the future, it's not depressing because I can say, okay, I'm going to put away this much money every week so I can do this project in the spring.
Right. How many times don't you start a project? Well, let me just talk about me.
Yeah.
How many times do I start a project and I don't have all of the right tools?
Right.
Well, at that point, my budget's already allotted for the paint that I need or the whatever that I need. I don't have as much money to get the tools that I need. So either I don't use those tools or I break the budget. Yeah. I never break the budget, Haley. I don't use those tools. I use something else.
Yeah.
And it doesn't normally work well.
It's effective.
Or I get something really cheap, a really cheap version of what I wanted that does not work as well. Sometimes those do. In a lot of instances, they just don't. You need the right thing to make the project work. And by planning ahead, you're going to catch all of those things.
Exactly.
And like you said, you can budget the money for it. A lot of what I do is I'll actually not just budget it, I've set it aside. It goes to another place. So it's not even like it's my money anymore.
Right.
It's off to the side.
Yeah, the project's, set aside already. It's done in that way.
No, I love that part about planning. It's going to save so many big problems down the road. You can figure out your paint colors, you can figure out your tools, you can figure out the process.
Yeah, if you've never done something before, I think that really stands in our way later on because we're just too intimidated by a project. And so we never get to it. We put it off. We decide that we can't. And if you're really buying into this planning process, now you've got all the time to learn about the process, do the research, come into a RepcoLite store and talk to us. You don't have to buy something every time you come in. Just come and talk to us about a project so that we can be there when you're ready.
If you want to buy something every time you come in, that's absolutely fine.
But we like talking to you too.
Right. All of those things. Another thing about planning is that it's fun now. It can be fun now. You've got nothing else cooking.
Right.
Right? We're sitting inside. The big storm of 23 is just around the corner. If you're sitting inside during that, planning is fun and it's productive. Later, when the project is starting and you just want to see results, planning is no fun and you don't want to do it at all.
No, when it is really warm outside, when it is springtime, that's the last thing that I want to be doing because I've got to get stuff in the ground now. I love garden planting. That's one of the things that I love doing this time of year. I hate doing it in the spring because I just want to start doing the thing now. Planning is like miserable at that point.
Right. We've got a few more thoughts on this that we want to talk about. We're going to do that and air that in the podcast. But right now, for the on-air part of the show, we're going to have to wrap it up. If you want to catch this one again, you can find it online at RepcoLite.com. And if you've got a topic that you'd love to hear us talk about on the show sometime in the future, we'd love that information so we can start planning for that. You can email us at radio@repcolite.com.
Well, even if you've got something that you're thinking about now that you want to start planning for and need help doing that research, let us do it for you. We'll come up with some answers.
Maybe you don't want to do the planning. Maybe
we'll do it for you.
Maybe your planning is just getting us to do that planning.
Perfect.
Either way, send that info to radio@repcolite.com. We'll dig into it. We'll get you answers, and who knows what? Maybe we'll share them with everybody out there. If it's a really good project that applies to more people, a lot of people can benefit. So anyway, whatever you do today, make sure paint's a part of it. The RepcoLite stores are all open, waiting to help. I'm Dan Hansen.
I'm Haley Johnson. Thanks for listening.
Now, Haley, you mentioned you like to just get the stuff in the ground. You just want to get moving. I mean, that's really what the whole thing that we've been talking about is.
Right.
Is the whole idea that I just want to be doing something, and planning isn't part of that. If we haven't incorporated it into our whole project, we hit the ground and maybe we're putting the wrong things in the ground. Or
definitely did that last year.
I thought you did.
Yeah.
You bought how much? I don't want to say how much because you bought a ton of plants.
Root starters that I didn't know enough about. I thought I was doing the right things, that I had done enough research to get me by because I just wanted to take advantage of like a certain sale that was going on. No, I hadn't done enough research. I needed to do way more planning than I thought. And I should have known that. This isn't something that I've really done before. I've not had a yard to landscape on my own. So it was one of those things that I haven't done. I needed to research the process more so that it was successful because I did not have success.
No, I think about, we talked about paint projects and all of those things. But yeah, when you're talking about that, I'm thinking instantly about the flowers every spring. It's time to get flowers for the house because the people who had the house before me, really big into outdoor. I mean, they really put the time in, and man, that has been stressful for me. There's so much to upkeep and maintain and live up to, because the neighborhood knows they did a great job. No, I'm the one who's ruined it, and it's not a fun place to be. But every spring, we've got to get plants and stuff like that. And every single time that happens, I think, oh, man, I should have dug into this a little more.
Yeah.
See, because for me, now for some people, that's a no-brainer. It's just like, good grief.
They've been doing it for so long and they know.
For me, it's tough. I'm reading every tag in the store, trying to figure out, is this going to fit where I could have planned this all out. I could have had a plan in place, a list of what I was looking for, some types of things. I could have known, oh, this is exactly not what to put where you always put it.
Or like how often you need to water that thing when you first plant it, because that's where I messed up. I put it in the right spot. It was meant for my shade, but I just didn't have the right watering schedule to make it take when I planted it. So it was still a waste.
Yeah, I know. It feels really bad to do that, to spend that
It's
time.
a waste of money.
Well, I know. I'm hesitating because there's something I want to say. I guess I'm going to just jump in. We're on the podcast, and there's nothing bad about it. I just feel bad. It was very, not funny to me is the wrong word, but I knew something went very wrong with your project last year. I didn't want to ask about it, but in the beginning of the season, you are just nonstop driving me nuts talking about all these plants you're going to buy.
Yeah.
Guilting me. Because I didn't have any plants figured out yet. And I didn't buy as many plants. And Haley's she just got a new house and she's just...
I'm going for it.
It's like a greenhouse outside. It's just amazing, all the things that she's bought. And then all of a sudden, it's like somebody just turned off the water. There's nothing.
Nothing.
Haley doesn't say 2 words. I finally asked her, how are those plants doing? Dead. Everything's dead. Right? A vast majority died.
Vast majority.
Yeah.
And, part of that, too, I do think maybe I've got like a soil problem. But that's another
let's
one
blame
of those
somebody
things
else. Blame something else.
that I could have planned for. Like a good gardener that's never planted in an area before would probably be looking at the pH of the soil. Like these are just all of the things that go into projects that we don't think about when we're just in action mode.
Right. So many of those things. Now's the time to get that stuff figured out because planning and I got to be talking to myself here. And in my head, I'm not. So I'm going to take 1 second. I'm envisioning myself getting lectured by myself, which is really funny. And I need to right now go home and start planning out what I want to put in the yard this year. And I can get that figured out. And it's going to be really fun because I'm thinking about the plants, the flowers, all of that stuff that when May hits, end of April,
right.
May, and the weather's really nice and all of the stuff is really starting to come in, the yard greens up, that's great times. I can make sure that is really smooth if I start that process now. And I'll enjoy the great big storm of 23 or whatever's coming by thinking about those things.
Yeah.
So whether it's outdoor work like that, I've got a shed that needs painting, a deck that needs to be done. Those are all things that you can think about, get planned out right now. Like a deck. Talk about that very quickly because sometimes people will have to strip it down, clean it. We have a deck cleaning machine that basically it will sand the entire deck.
The on-floor machine.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, but it does book out. I mean, is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a rental, so you've got to plan ahead. You've got to make sure that you're on the books to be able to have that machine during the height of deck season.
Right now, nobody's on the books, so you could get set for project down the road.
Or if you're going to hire someone, I mean, that stuff you've got to be planning ahead of time. You're not just going to hire a painter for next week when spring comes. You've got to be on the books already. So no matter what you're doing, whether you're going to do it yourself or hire someone else to do it, planning is crucial, and it's fun to do now. It's not fun to do later.
Right. So if you're struggling with the winter blues, we could keep going, but I think we've made the case. If you're struggling with the winter blues, if you don't believe us that winter's over, that's fine. That's fine. Just enjoy what we've got. And when February rears its head again or March shows up to be true March like we know it will be, remember this. And when you're feeling a little bummed, maybe it's time, turn off TV, get a notepad, maybe get some coffee.
Right.
Just sit down.
Make some lists. Make
some lists of all the different things that you want to work on, things around your home that you'd love to see changed. Figure out the things that you need to figure out. What do I need to know in order to change that? If to make this happen, I need to learn how to do X, Y, Z, or I need this color or that color figured out for this space. Now you know what you're after, then spend some time working on those things. And before you know it, winter will have gone the way of the dinosaur for a while. It'll come back again, but at least you've got a break.
It'll be crushed again.
but at least you'll have a break, and it'll be time to work. And now all of a sudden, while everybody else is scrambling around thinking, oh my goodness, I got to figure these out.
I want to do all the things.
You've got it set, and you can hit the ground running, make good decisions, budget-friendly decisions, and basically get the projects done and get ready for the fun stuff.
That's what's going to happen.
You're going to win the whole year.
Yeah.
All right. That's all the time we've got for this. We're going to wrap it up. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks for listening.